Hey y'all. I know it's been long overdue, but we're gonna get into this review of Love and Marriage Huntsville season 6, episode 15, titled Give Black to the Community. And if you hear some stuff in the background, it's just my neighbors, so my bad. But if you enjoy this live, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. Now let's get into it. So, Stormi is continuing to explain to Tisha how Marceau came up to her about the $100 and how he's trying to lie and saying that he came to help, but to also see about the $100. And Stormi explaining how she's not feeling that, and Tisha is agreeing that she told Marceau not to say that. But then Marceau condescendingly asked Stormi if he put her in a bad mood, and she says yes, he definitely did. And then Marcel asks her, how can he do better in the future when he really doesn't give a fuck, to be honest. But then Stormy tells him that there is no future. He should have done better, right then and there. And Tisha co-signs that. And then Stormy gets so serious and tells Marcel not to ever play with her like that in his life, and he tells Stormy that she's checked him and all that, and like he feels fully checked, so she don't need to go on basically because she was doing it a bit much. And then Stormy says that she has a lot going on right now, but she came to participate in their event and to support them, and for this event that they say is a part of the community or for the community. And then Marcel says he asks Stormy if she feels a way about that and tells her that maybe she took it the wrong way what he said in the wrong spirit because he meant it like he didn't mean it like that. And then Tisha is just watching Marcel get his ass ate up with a look on her face like, I told your dumbass not to say nothing. But then Stormy says, nah, it's not about the spirit. It's about the fact that if there was money involved, that they could have said something before today. Which, of course, I think everybody agrees with Stormy on that point that they should have said something before the day of. Then Marcel says that at the end of the day, he was just trying to make sure that they handled their business. And Stormy tells him not to ever play with her like that. And Tisha tries to butt in and calm shit down some because Stormy is getting heated and ratchet. And then she tells Marceau that he doesn't want to see Courtney and all of that. Like that's what Stormy said. And then Stormy says that they are so unprofessional not to tell people that there was money involved. And Marceau was like, "Whoa!" And Tisha says, "Well, wait a minute. Let's not say all of them are unprofessional." And Stormy cleans it up and points at Marceau and says that he's the unprofessional one. And then Marceau gets even more extra and says that they'll waive the fee for Stormy. And Tisha is like, here he go again, start more shit. And my thing is if it was so easy to waive the fee, he could have started that with the beginning, started that from the beginning. But then Stormy says, nah, they'll donate it and asks him if he got any of the sponsorships he wanted. And Marceau shakes his head no. And Stormy turns to walk away and says, wow, it makes sense why he's tripping over $100. But it's cool. It says the next time don't ask her for shit. And Tisha says, ooh, like, because I don't know, Stormy be getting heated like quick. And I get it, anybody would have been upset about you asking me for some money on a day of, but like she responds like that to everything. And the way she acted at the end of this episode, I do not fuck with Stormy anymore. Like it's giving real season 3 Melody Hole. I didn't like it. But now we're with Mel, and she's in a car with her brother Marcus. And in her confessional, Mel says she's considering. She had considered showing up to the expo, the same day just to show her face and to congratulate everyone. But she has her own stuff going on. And then Marcus asks her, what's the game plan for the event? She says to walk around and buy stuff, but she just really wanted to congratulate Tisha. And I was like, did y'all notice how she didn't say Marceau to congratulate Tisha and Marceau? Don't nobody like that man, bro. But then Marcus asks her if Martell will be at the event as well. And Melody says that she would assume so because he was a part of the Don't Call It a Comeback meetings that they all had. But then Marcus also asks if she's going to interact with him. And she says that she really just ignores Martell. Everybody ignores his ass. Let's be honest. But now they at the expo and it's very nice and busy and Tisha's walking around meeting people. And in her confessional, um, she and Marceau say that the turnout was nice and that it was worth all the hard work and headaches. And Marceau says that he's gonna go out on a limb and say that almost all of the vendors there paid for their fee. And I'm like, here you go trying to be messy and stuff. But that's what Marceau do. That's him. And sometimes you have to understand that he really just be joking. He be serious, but he be joking. And Stormi don't know how to take no fucking joke. But then Martell walks in with his tight suit and all, and in his confessional, he says one of the first people he met when he arrived at the expo was a man named Lorenzo with a mentoring business, and he says it would be great for his brother since he's wanting to be an entrepreneur and all that stuff. And he says even though he's there to support Tisha and Marceau, he's also there to support his brother, to get back on the right track. And then Melody and Marcus walk in, and she seems somewhat excited. In her confessional, she says upon walking into the expo, she's excited and it looks good, and the people are there, and she's here for it. And she gives her a little applause. And I'm not gonna lie, she seemed somewhat sincere with her congratulations. So I had to look at her sideways this episode because I'm like, is she gonna be shady or is she really gonna be giving them their props? But then Martell and Maurice meet up, and Maurice asks him, where's his wine, his Inez wine, and why he didn't bring it. Martell says that he's not going to do that, and he says that he's done enough with his wine in Huntsville, and he wants to give other people in the wine industry a chance to shine, and he doesn't want to be selfish. And I'm sorry, Martell, but I'm not buying that shit because nobody liked your shit anyway. That's why you didn't want to bring it. And people were like, well, it don't taste good. It's a knockoff. You're not paying people, yada, yada, yada. Allegedly, from what, I was hearing on the blogs. But if you're at an expo and you yourself are an entrepreneur, why would you not bring your shit there so people can test it out or see it? Like, that don't make no sense. But in his confessional, Maurice says that he doesn't understand why Martell wouldn't bring his wine, considering it's an expo, but says it's clear that when Melody and Martell were together, there was a distinct line of duties, and Melody was the marketing genius. And Martell is missing the whole point of the expo. Like, Melody would have had a whole section just to herself for all the shit that she do. And then Mega Tiffany and Big Blue come in and they have an awkward reaction or an awkward interaction with Maurice first, and then Marceau because I don't think he was expecting them there, and then Martell when he asked Tiffany and Lou if they were going to be speaking today, and Tiffany was like, "Huh, speaking?" Because her ass can't wait to just be working and running her mouth about some shit nobody care about. But then Lewis says that he didn't hear anything about that, and everybody's just looking at Marceau like, "Are you going to explain?" And then they show a clip of Tisha FaceTiming Tiffany asking if she could come to the expo and says that her doctor told her that she had to be on bed rest, but that she could have the baby any day now. And in his confessional, Marceau says that he was surprised to see Tiffany there because he thought that she was bedridden and that it's odd that Tiffany would want to speak at an event considering that she's basically about to pop and he doesn't know what she's going to say. And then they show parts where Melody and Martell are checking out on the vendors, and then one girl comes up and basically is trying to flirt with Martell, kind of. But she says that her business is helping prevent uh, pregnancies and the natural way and like natural birth control. And Martell was like, oh, he should have found her a long time ago. And I'm like, boy, shut up, because you the one with the weak pullout game trying to flirt with this little girl. Leave her alone before you fuck up her life like you did Ariane's, please, and Melody. Because again, Melody, she said in this episode that she met Martell when she was 22. I just turned 23. I cannot imagine meeting some man, getting married to that nigga late. Like, no, not at 22. That is a lot. And then having all these kids, and then he come out here acting a fool on Beyonce's internet. No, thank you. But then Tisha asks Maurice where Kimmy is, and she says that she's at her treatment because they're on the last leg of her treatments and stuff. So they're almost done, and then Martell and Marcus meet up, and it's very, very awkward already. And Marcus asks Martell if he and Melody are getting along any better, and Martell smirks and lies and says that they are, that things seem to be on the right track or in the right direction. And every time he says that, some shit goes awry. So we want to see how long that lasts. And Marcus asks Martell what does he think he can do to make things smoother for them. And Martell says that he's hoping that Melody's guard can come down after 3 years of all of that stuff going on with them, especially without the courts having to force her to be amicable, especially um, because it all the kids are involved basically. And then Martell tells Marcus that he's hopeful that with his support for Melody, things can come around. And then they show clips from past seasons of Martell and Marcus having one-on-ones and how they get heated most of the times. But then they shake hands and go separate ways. And then Martell says that Marcus is so immature. And then in his confessional, Martell says that he still feels some way about Marcus, especially after that conversation, because he felt like he was trying to rush their conversation and throw digs. But he just says overall he's just not feeling Marcus at all. And he says, fuck him for real. I was like, damn, not little country bumpkin Martell. But then Marceau and Melody catch up, and he asks her if she's gonna be on stage, and she says no. She just wanted to come through and support. And then Marcus jokes that he'll come up on stage and talk, but it's definitely real awkward. And I just realized at this moment, like they really just wanted Melody because of her stage presence. Like she's known for her little mimosas with Mel and just talking to the ladies about a whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, she had the most clout. And I said this, a few reviews ago, but it is what it is. I guess it's good that she didn't do that so they wouldn't use up all her talent, I guess. So Martell and his brother catch up, and he's telling him about the vendor that he first saw with the mentorship. But you can tell that Martell is kind of getting tired of trying to push his little brother. But then I noticed that when they were talking and how the camera had them, they were standing in front of Madani, like the Madani vendor spot. And I'm like, see, at least they still have Destiny out here doing stuff, even though she's not on the show. Like, you still see her stuff, and everybody knows that Madani is hers from the past seasons that she was on. But I just think, like, that's what's up, that they still support her, even though she's not on the show. Because this show, ooh, chow, this show. But then in his confessional, Martell says that he's glad his brother took his advice by attending the expo because he usually wouldn't have done anything like that. So it means a lot that he's taking that step. And then Kimmy arrives in her confessional. She says she's a little late because of her radiation, and it takes a lot out of her. So her showing up to the expo is really an act of love. And then Kimmy speaks with a woman who lets her know that she appreciates Kimmy for sharing her story and all of that. And then in her confessional, Kimmy says that she wasn't going to share her story at all, but being on this platform, it's impacted a lot of people with her story, and she says it means a lot. And then Montez gets Melody's attention, and then they exchange their pleasantries. And she's like, "Oh, Montez, it's so nice to see you," in her little high pitched voice. And then she introduces him to her brother. And then Montez asks her if she and Martell are good, and she says, as good as they can be. And she says, it's not like perfect, but it is what it is. It's not a no either. And then Martez tells her that it's gonna be all right, and that they have to do it for the kids. And she's like, mm-hmm. And then he's like, his brother, and he's like, yeah, she knows. But then he was like, he know both of them and how they both are. And she was just like, well, how am I? But Martell is watching them talk this whole time, being all creepy and shit. But then Melody hugs Montez and tells him that she's so happy to see him and that it makes her want to cry. And I'm not even gonna lie, she really did look like she wanted to bust out in tears. But in her confessional, she says, of course, with her meeting Martell when she was 22, she's been around his family for some time, and Montez being one of those family members who's had a lot going on in his life and not a lot of it being good. She says she remembers talking to him and encouraging him to do the right thing. And so seeing him at the expo and that being something positive, she says that, she gets pretty emotional. And then Stormi is on the phone with Courtney asking him what's going on. And apparently they had something happen at the warehouse where they ran out of labels and shit. And she just around the expo on the phone with him, cussing and shit. And everybody around her is looking very awkward. Like, you know, I really be trying to root for Stormi sometimes, but she does. Her and her mom get very much ghetto and ratchet, and it's a time and place for that shit. Like, for real. But in her confessional, Stormi says, it's a lot going on at the warehouse. And, she's starting to regret being at the expo because she feel like she should be at the warehouse right now dealing with that stuff and it's giving her anxiety. And then these two are a recipe for disaster for real. Tiffany shows up and greets Stormi and she asks her what's wrong. And then Stormi tells her what's going on. And tells her that she's stressed. And Tiffany asks her, is it about the expo? And then Stormi explains what's going on with the warehouse and, how she only has two other people helping her set up and that she's just tired. And then Tiffany says, well, Tisha should be glad that she still showed up. And she says, Stormi says that's what she said. And that, Martell is messy. And hold on. Oh, then she tells Tiffany the everything that happened with Marceau and the money, and I was like, I already knew like they was gonna get messy and spill that shit when she walked over because she just couldn't hold it. She couldn't hold it, and Tiffany thrives off of this shit, and you'll see why because she wanted to have a big get together kumbaya meeting later on, and that shit went left, completely left. Um, Tiffany says that, well, what would the event be without Stormi's setup? And says that Marceau just went around asking people if they're speaking for the event and says that she didn't even know about any of that. And in her confessional, Tiffany says that she thought that they were there to celebrate Black business and showcase people in Huntsville and says that this event feels a little disoriented altogether and says that the money thing was unprofessional. Okay, but you would have did the same shit, so please get out my face. Because she seems like the type to do that. And they shouldn't even be surprised because Marceau is that type of person. So, but then Tiffany tells Stormi that she felt away because for this, she just found out about the whole expo thing 2 days ago. And then Melody and Kimmy greet each other. And Kimmy complains about how they got her cornered in the back, And I'm just thinking, they keep saying that the expo was messy. And it's all about energy, in my opinion. And I feel like Marceau started it all wrong when how he came at Stormi about that money. So, maybe the expo would have been better if he didn't do what he did. He could have waited until afterwards. He really could have waited until afterwards, but I feel like he fucked up the energy from the beginning. And then Martell and Tisha greet each other, and then Maurice gets down to business and asks Martell where is his special guest. And he's looking around, and Tisha's like, who's the special guest? And Martell asks if he's talking about Sheree, and Maurice is like, obviously. And he's like, nah, Sheree says she's in Cali visiting friends. And he had a hard time getting that out, because he don't believe that shit. But then he makes a face, and Maurice is like, friends, huh? See, Martell, you don't like when somebody can play that game too, huh? They already told you that you are messy, and they told Sheree that you messy. So she's just trying to keep her distance. She trying to keep her Bravo checks, in my opinion. Fuck. But then Martell says, yeah, Sheree been answering her phone. And Maurice is like, for real? And then why does Marceau's dumbass say, well, it is different time zones, and then she's probably at church? And they just all co-sign and was like, yeah, she did say she had service. And they're like, what day is it? Yeah, she had church. You fools. I just can't. But then Martell says that when they was on the phone last, she said her phone might die in 5 seconds, and it literally did. And then he called back 3 hours later, and the phone was still dead. You getting played, shorty, and you don't like it. The fuck? Sheree been around for a minute now. But then in his confessional, Martell says that he and Sheree's relationship is still cool and they hang out and they talk on the phone, and says that, she's his friend girl. Um, but he had a hard time describing what he and Sheree are. A friend girl, nigga, like, y'all not 12. Like, what are you saying to me? But then the you can't call him the core six because Melody wasn't there and Stormi came in, like, so the majority of them were behind the, curtain, talking or whatever. And Marceau was telling everybody that Stormi is mad at him because he didn't know which payment arrangement Stormi and Tisha had set up. So, he's saying that Stormi is just not feeling him right now. And then Martell is being goofy, but tells them that they all did a great job. And he looks around the curtain. He's like, hold on. Melody's out there. Nigga, you saw her talking to your brother. Stop playing with me. But then, why, what does this say? Oh, so Kimmy's asking Martell, like, is he gonna say something or whatever on stage? And he's like, no, he don't want to say nothing. He's kind of throwing a tantrum. Um, and Maurice is like, well, Martell gets a little nervous. That's probably why he doesn't want to do it. And Marceau says that it's weird for Martell not to be up there with them. And in her confessional, Tiffany says that the core six arguing is definitely not a surprise and that everybody can see them arguing. And she says, hopefully she knows that. And then Tisha's like, oh, they can see us. And I'm going to put the thumbnail in later on. I was just trying to hurry up and do this live. But you'll see exactly what I mean because I put it in the thumbnail. It's a picture of all of them just behind the screen, just arguing and shit. Like, yes, it was discombobulated, but it was still very popular and people still showed up. So give them their credit. It's the first one. It'll probably be better next year. But then in her confessional, Tisha says that she's not sure what's more embarrassing, that they're arguing in front of the whole audience or Martell changing his mind at the last minute. And then Marceau says, to be fair, Martell changing his mind is pretty on brand for him. And then they finally introduce everybody, and you can kind of see that they kind of cringe, like Martell cringes because he don't want to be up there. And that's probably the whole reason why he didn't bring his wine, now that I think about it, because he didn't want to have to talk about it. He didn't want people to ask him no questions because he got stage fright and stuff. But like, you ain't learned no pointers from Melody at all. In the 14 years y'all was married, you ain't learned nothing. That proves that these niggas don't pay attention for shit. They only pay attention to what they want. But in his confessional, Martell says that he definitely expected Melody to attend the Blaque Expo and that he actually thought that she'd be one of the speakers somehow, some way, but didn't expect her to sit in the audience. And he says that he doesn't really do public speaking and he does get nervous when he has to do it. But he didn't want to let anyone down and he still wanted to play some of a part. And I just, it's an excuse. Like, what was the point of going to the meetings then, Martell, if you wasn't gonna be a part of the shit? Like, let's really be honest. He would have went up there and said something if they was getting paid. How much you want to bet that? The fuck, like him and Melody, they still be on the same. They be thinking the same thing. Because if it weren't for the fact that he's like, oh, he didn't want to let them down, he would have sat down there right next to Melody in the audience. Because they don't do nothing unless they get paid for it. The fuck? He didn't even say nothing on stage. He was just passing around a fucking microphone. But then they, speak on the panel and give advice and all that. And then in her confessional, Stormi says that even though she definitely had issues with how some of the things went down, she says that it does feel really good to share some of the things that she's learned, as a businesswoman. And then Martell gets up and stands in front of the stage and says that they're going to open up, for a Q&A. And Marceau, in my opinion, he looked confused. And I'm like, to be clear, Martell didn't say anything about any of his businesses, right? And I mean, I get it because it's like he didn't have nothing there to showcase, but that's not the point. Like, you should have never went, nigga. Like, I don't know. And then someone asked Marceau a question, and for the first time, it really seemed like he didn't know what to say. And in her confessional, Tiffany basically brags about the fact that Marceau kind of stumbled with explaining what a venture capitalist is or capitalism is, and says that she could have did that because she works in it. So, it was just hard watching him have a hard time. And like I said, this is the first expo, cut them some slack. Um, but I don't know. That's what Marcel gets for trying to start that whole thing about some money. You think you know everything, and cat got your tongue. And then Maurice did so much better than Marceau did when it came to explaining, his business and the things that he learned. So, Big Brother up one, I guess. But then in his confessional, Marceau asked Tisha if she thinks that the expo was worth it. And she says, despite a few hiccups, she feels like it was. And then Marceau says, getting ahead of himself, that he thinks that they should take the expo on a road and do some pop ups. And Tisha says, well, they'll talk about that after she has a drink. She gonna have to take that shit by herself because obviously he don't know how to talk to people when it comes to money and stuff. He could have definitely waited until the expo was a success and then asked her about the money, or he could have said the shit when they did the walkthrough. But it is what it is. It's already done. And then Stormi and Courtney catch up on what's been going on with what happened at the warehouse or whatever. And she explains what happened with Marceau and what he said. And I don't know, their whole interaction when it came to what Marceau said, it kind of was just like she wanted her big, strong man to go beat up Marceau. And it's just like, and okay, y'all do business all the time. People cut corners. People do some grimy shit. But it is what it is. What the fuck was Courtney going to do? Because she was like, well, are you going to say something to him? And he was like, no. But then she was like, well, somebody need to call him a bitch for being childish like that. And he was like, well, I definitely do that. I definitely do that. Um, but then they get into a deeper conversation about Stormi when she was in the hospital having their son, and he gets into saying how he don't want he doesn't want somebody else to carry his kid, but he will consider having another child with her, but it would have to be like a surrogate because he doesn't want to see her in that hospital like that, and says that he was very traumatized by seeing her on the table and losing all that blood and stuff. And I guess Courtney thought that Stormi was gonna cry because he asked her. He was like, you crying?" And she was like, "Nah," but it just she got sad because it sounds like they're not having any more kids. And he was like, he didn't say that. He just doesn't want to see her in that pain anymore. And he don't want nobody else to carry her kid, but he'll consider it over seeing her in that pain again. And even though he's the big strong man who don't want nobody to cry, I thought that was sweet and vulnerable. Like, oh, you don't want to see your wife in pain. That's sweet because most of these niggas don't give a single fuck. Um, but you can tell that news, made Stormi happy. Um, because I think she just wants to expand their family, but she confirms with him that it's going to be through a surrogate. But she tears up and tells him that she didn't know that he was traumatized, and he said, and then she said she thought he was fine, and he was like, well, he had to act fine, he couldn't be passing out in front of her while they at the hospital and all that stuff going on, but apologizes to her for taking so long to tell her, which I thought was sweet. And now the worst part of this fucking episode. I'm trying to tell you, yo, I cannot stand Tiffany. Like every time she pop up on my screen, it makes me want to stop reviewing this shit because she gets under my skin so fucking bad. But anyways, in her confessional, she says that she invited the ladies to lunch so they could have some time. Um, and she could talk to Tisha, and she want to share how she felt about being excluded from the expo while providing her constructive criticism. And like I said, y'all already know how I feel about this lady. But my thing is if she wanted to talk to Tisha, it could have been one on one, just the two of them. But she wanted to embarrass Tisha in front of everybody, and that's the difference. And why offer constructive criticism? So that's what you call it when nobody asked for that shit. Can somebody explain that to me? because Tiffany does this shit all the time. And didn't Big Lou just have to ask her like, well, why are you trying to give Melody and Martell advice about a blended family and shit? Nobody wants to talk to you, Tiffany. Like, please. But then in her confessional, Tisha says although there were a few hiccups leading up to the expo, she's happy to get this invite from Tiffany because overall it was a success, and she understands why Stormi felt a way about paying the $100, but she's hoping that they can move past that. And then trying to be funny, Tiffany says that the expo was a success. So what does the comeback group have next? And they all laugh, or real nervously. And Tisha jokes um, that uh, they're gonna be chilling for now, but they don't really know what's going on, and that it was a lot trying to get everybody together to do the shit anyway. But then Stormi and Tiffany jump in and kind of ask how they did it. And Tiffany says because um she asked Stormi what if she was gonna be speaking or whatever. And she says that Stormi was like she didn't know, I guess, when she talked to her at the expo. And in so many words, Tiffany says that she felt like the Whitlows were left out because there were all these meetings and stuff that they didn't know about. And Kimmy jumps in and says that they weren't left out though. And then Tiffany says, well, she sent her the message the day before. And she's like, well, why are you sending me this shit the day before? Well, bitch, you didn't have to show the fuck up then. You didn't have to show up if that's how you felt. Like, the fuck? And that's the type of energy I be talking about. Like, if you didn't want to be there, you didn't have to be there then. You could have pretended like you was going into labor or something. Because maybe this baby will get you to shut the fuck up. But then Tiffany, still trying to be smart, says, well, because she's a real timer with a snap, um, she says that if there was a list of questions and stuff that were about business, that she could have answered some fucking questions. That's exactly what she said. And she always loved cussing at a formal event. Then nobody started cussing until Tiffany and Stormi started that shit. Let's be clear. And then she says that it didn't have to be such a formal setting or whatever, or a formal seat at the table at the comeback group, but she would have appreciated a formal invite to participate. Bitch, if they didn't want you to be there, they didn't want you to be there because you run your mouth too much. And my thing is that if they see how she talks to them, why would they want her talking to a whole group of people? I wouldn't want her ass there either. But then Kimmy says that she really believes that it was an oversight because Tisha said Tiffany's name at the very beginning. And my thing is that Tiffany, you aren't anybody's first choice. And you don't have to be anywhere. You're just trying to push yourself into somewhere that you don't need to be a part of. And you probably would have tried to change everything around anyway, or said that this was fucked up and this is that. And like, no, that's why they didn't have your ass, because you do too much. But then Tiffany says, yeah, but she still felt excluded. And Tisha says that she thought, honestly, she didn't know what Tiffany does. Like, she doesn't know what Tiffany does for a living. And then it gets real awkward around the table because everybody caught that shade. Because I don't know what the fuck that bitch do either. And then Tisha says that she knows that Lewis is an entrepreneur, but she looks at Tiffany and says that she knows her, that her and her business partner started a company, but she doesn't know exactly what she does. And Stormi jumps in and was like, well, didn't y'all just raise $3 million? And here go Tiffany. Yeah, we just raised 3.5 mil. And Tisha was like, well, that's good to know. And then in her confessional, Stormi says, is Tisha really being for real? For the expo that took weeks of planning, it wasn't professional or put together. It says that it was overbooked with vendors, and said that the decor was giving very much junior prom. And then she mentioned the whole Marceau thing. So then, Stormi, you do your own expo. And my whole thing is like, if y'all did not want to be a part of it, y'all could have just fucking left. Because y'all always running your mouth, but y'all could have just left, really. And then Stormi tells Tisha that they should have told her about the money when they went to check out the building and not on the day of, and then mocks Marceau when he asked about the money. And then Tisha says, hold on, because she told Marceau that what he did was messed up, but also tells Stormi that she didn't like how she responded either. And then Tisha tells Stormi that she can't tell her how to respond. Then listen to when I say this. Tisha tells Stormi that she told her she can't tell her how she can respond, and she doesn't know how Marceau came up to her, but she says that her response was kind of because they were at a business setting, and that she has to know where she has to know that there will be complications in certain situations, but you have to know how to communicate certain things. And Stormi tries to cut Tisha off and says that she's going to stop her right there, but Tisha continues to say that, you know, the whole thing about bringing Courtney in was just unnecessary. And then Stormi gets smart, saying that you cannot and will not on any day tell her how to respond. And Tisha says that that's exactly what she just said. But then Stormi says that she feels a way about how she should respond. You know, then that's just, it is what it is. And then Tisha says straight up, Stormi, what is your problem? She says, what the fuck is your problem? And Stormi says that she was just trying to figure out where the decor was because she didn't see none. And when she started acting like this, it was very gaslitish. It was very passive aggressive. And my thing is, I would have got up and left that fucking table, because you're not going to bring up the situation. We're trying to talk about it as adults, and then you shut down and start nitpicking like a fucking child. Like, girl, just bye. And then Tisha says that she doesn't even know where the conversation is going, and she doesn't need that attitude and shit. And Stormi says that it went left when she tried to tell her how to respond, and that she didn't like how she talked to her husband, that, you know, that's when the shit went left. And then Stormi points and Tisha and says, don't tell her how to talk. And Tisha says that she didn't tell her how she's talking, but she's like, you know, look at how you coming at me right now. It's not okay. And my bad, y'all. That's outside. And then I'm like, nobody is noticing how Tiffany is eating this shit up, smiling and shit. Like, she loves this. This is a certified bone collector. Her ass need to be on Real Housewives of Atlanta or something, because they need her messiness. I don't want her messiness on my Huntsville. I don't like this shit. But then Stormi is still going on about the expo, and about how she got real ratchet and rude just now. And I just didn't like how she just started to blow up. Like, it was just not professional. And then you wonder why people don't be wanting to talk to your ass. Like, you and your mom are so crazy at the fucking mouth, bro. Like, mm. And Tisha is telling Stormi how she's not listening. And like I said, I would have got up and left, because Stormi is doing more than the most. And then Tisha gets annoyed because Stormi isn't listening, and says that she didn't try to tell her how to respond. And Kimmy says that no, she didn't, and says that she talked to Marceau about his energy and how she didn't like how he did all of that. And Stormi is just still being a big ass kid. Stormi never once acknowledged that Tisha actually did pull her husband to the side and was just like, look, Marceau, you did too much. All Stormi's worried about is the fact that Tisha said that she didn't like how she came at her husband. Like, you red bones be getting on my fucking nerves, because y'all always want somebody to fight your battle after you start being a chihuahua, starting all the shit. Um, and it's not all y'all, but like, really, I don't know. It's something about Stormi. Like, when she don't get her way, you can tell she the only child, because when she don't get her way, she just throw a fucking tantrum. But then Tisha says to the table, if you can't tell your friends how they made you feel, you know, about some stuff, and then here goes Stormi, we're not there yet. And I'm like, okay, bitch. And then Tisha tries to tell Stormi that if the roles were reversed and she talked according like that, you know, she wouldn't like it. And here goes Stormi. Tisha ain't crazy enough to do that. But you crazy enough to talk to her husband like that? Like, bitch, are you the real Delulu or what? Like, come on, this is what I'm saying. Y'all like to do stuff to people, and then when they do the shit back, you be like, "Oh, you're not crazy enough." Well, obviously, you're crazy enough to do that shit to me, because all these past seasons, Kimmy been saying, "Y'all don't know the real Tisha. Y'all don't know the real Tisha." I want to see Tisha whip some ass, because at this point, somebody deserves it. And then Tisha says that's what she's saying. She doesn't know why Stormi's coming at her like that, because Stormi don't know her like that either. And then Stormi does her gaslighting thing where she asks Tisha if she's upset, and, you know, because it's like she got a whole attitude, and she tried to flip the shit on Tisha, don't do that. And, you know, like I said, I just don't fuck with Stormi no more after this, because she did not have to provoke that girl. She was provoking her for real, like poking the fucking bear. You're the one who had the attitude, and now you're trying to flip it on people. I don't like that, because you're a grown ass adult. How can't you just be like, well, you know what, Tisha, you're right. The way I responded to your husband probably wasn't the best way, but I was only reacting to the way he came at me. She not grown enough to do that, and no wonder her and Melody were friends, and that's why her and Stormi and Tiffany are gonna be so friendly because neither of y'all know how to take accountability. But then Tisha says no, she's not upset. She's just letting her know that she's being very disrespectful and rude. And then Kimmy jumps in and tells Stormi that she isn't making it any better and that she's being very patronizing. And then Tisha says that the old Tisha would have jumped across the table right by now. And then Stormi says, well, then get active then, get active. And I'm like, look at how little ratchet ass, hood ass, slum ass hoe she really is being. Like, I don't like that irky shit. Her ass need to be on Love and Hip Hop then. Like, the fuck? This is not how business women behave. Like, y'all, it's just getting on my fucking nerves. And then both Tisha and Kimmy are like, girl, what the fuck is wrong with you? And and is it because Courtney told her that he don't want no more fucking kids? Is that what it is? Because lady, he kind of gave you a pass saying that y'all can have a surrogate. So what the fuck is your problem still? But then in her confessional, Tisha says, given the timing and the budget of the event, Stormi and Tiffany should be congratulating her. But instead they're being petty, like, what's the problem? And they didn't pull it off and she and Marceau did. So what really is the issue? And that's what I'm saying. Because y'all I would have liked like a heads up. I would have liked to be invited, this, that, and the third. But y'all didn't think about pulling this shit off yourself. Come on, y'all trying to bite off Tisha shit. But then Tisha just gets up and she says that she thought that they were better than that. And Stormi facetiously says that she thought they were too, but you learn something new every day. And Tisha says, yeah, you definitely do. And as she's about to go, Kimmy is asking Stormi why is she doing that. And then Tisha tells Tiffany not to invite her to no more bullshit like this and that she's done. And then Stormi's ugly ass just keep eating her food. And that's the end of that episode. And I know it's taking me a month to get that shit out, but now I see why, because I probably would have been pissed seeing how Stormi acted. And now tomorrow for the new episode of Huntsville, we'll see the aftermath of all of that. But I don't like it. I don't like that shit. I don't like that rude, cruddy shit. Like, y'all was just trying to have a conversation. She's like, Tiffany is rubbing off on her a little too much for me. Like, I be trying to give Stormi a chance, but the whole way she acted, it was because she didn't have Stormi on her neck. I mean, she didn't have Courtney on her neck, trying to get her to calm the fuck down. But anyways, y'all, if y'all enjoyed this review, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one.